Chun borrows a mountain of cash from the mafia, buys the most expensive ice creams, hires the most expensive contractor to build his safe house because only he knows that the apocalypse is coming, so there won't be any need to pay anyone back. Lujing Pedestrian Street, March 2nd, 2030. The place was unusually quiet, and inside a dim little room off the street, someone's voice cut through the silence, asking a kid if he had any idea what borrowing 5 million from him really meant. When the lights flicked on, the speaker revealed himself, Jin Jiang, the boss of the Dai Gang and the men behind the Luchcheng underground bank. The kid standing before him was clearly nervous. He kept insisting that he understood that as long as brother Jiang was willing to lend, even high interest was fine. Behind Jiang, a row of bodyguards stood like carved statues, each one more intimidating than the last. Jiang Yong calmly named his terms: 4% interest, 5 million borrowed, 7 million due in half a year. He told the boy to write the IOU for 7 million and hand over collateral of equal value. Chan, the kid, hurriedly produced a document, the deed to his house. Jean glanced at it and commented aloud that the place was old and only worth around 3 or 4 million at best, but in his mind, he was already laughing. A large flat over 140 m being used as collateral for a loan shark. A fat sheep had practically walked into his hands. Then he casually said that 5 million couldn't be lent out based solely on that house. The moment Chun heard that, he panicked. Clasping his hands together as if praying, he begged not to lose the deal, saying 4 million would work, too. That a fortune-telling master claimed his luck was soaring, and he'd surely earn several times the amount back. Jiang lowered the offer to 3.5 million, pretending it was the highest he could go. Inwardly, he sneered at how easily a young gambler could be hooked. Chan, however, reacted as if he'd just been saved from drowning, thanking Jiang with overwhelming enthusiasm and promising to repay him soon. Jiang then adjusted the final terms: repay 4.9 million in 3 months or the house would automatically belong to him. If Chen agreed, he could write the IOU immediately and receive the funds within 3 days. Chun said there was no problem, just that he had one condition of his own. The moment he said that, Xiang's curiosity sharpened and he leaned in to listen. 10 minutes later, Chun walked out of the room with a bright, satisfied smile on his face. From inside the room, a cheerful voice called out, thanking Chun for his patronage and telling him to take care. On his phone screen, a massive deposit lit up. Ding! Mobile account received 3.5 million yuan. Chun couldn't hold back the quiet laughter in his mind. To him, the whole situation was almost comical. In a month, the apocalypse would descend. Who in their right mind would still bother paying back a loan at that point? With the money finally in his hands, his thoughts immediately shifted to preparation. He had no intention of reliving the nightmare from his past life. Back then, a catastrophic natural disaster had struck Blue Star, reshaping the entire planet's ecosystem. Intense solar radiation pushed global temperatures to a horrifying average of 50 degrees Celsius, plunging humanity into a high-temperature apocalypse that lasted 30 days. Humans, animals, nothing survived unscathed. The world had been thrown into chaos. Meanwhile, back in the underground bank, Jin Jiang was laughing to himself. To secure the money quickly, he'd even dared to raise the interest, and he felt no shame about it. In his eyes, gamblers hardly deserved a home. One of his men cautiously pointed out that Chen's house was worth over 4 million, yet they'd pushed it to 3.5, and Chen accepted instantly. Maybe it was a trap, but Jiang simply waved it off. He claimed he'd seen countless gamblers, people who would trade even their families for cash. What was a house to someone like that? He joked that the world was full of good people who paid extra interest without complaint. Chen, meanwhile, had his own private thoughts. He remembered all too vividly how he had once boasted, "You think you can scam me? I'm the man who borrowed from every loan shark in Luoyang in a single day. Interest rates, I laugh at them. Once the money's in my hands, don't even dream of getting it back." He knew exactly what was coming. After the apocalypse, the earth dried up, vegetation withered, creatures mutated, and society crumbled. Supplies became so scarce that people threw away whatever morals they had left just to secure a bit of food or water. Those who possessed resources were like kings. Even billionaires and celebrities ended up begging for a hot sausage or a sip of clean water. Those who failed to adapt were left to wander the dead streets until they met their miserable end. But this time was different. He had been reborn. He had foreknowledge, and before disaster arrived, there was still enough time. Time to prepare, time to build, and time to make sure he would never suffer like he once had. Chun eventually wandered past a group of girls who were giggling together, and the sight caught his attention. He recognized the boxes in their hands and immediately thought to himself that this must be the legendary ice cream assassin, the kind of luxury treat said to be even pricier than the so-called noble of ice creams. He stared for a moment, remembering how, in his past life, he never dared buy one for himself. Instead, he had wasted money treating that woman Lu Wenqing to it again and again. Feeding such high-end ice cream to her felt more wasteful than feeding it to a dog. The more he thought about it, the more his chest tightened. Fine. Then this time he was going to enjoy it. Without hesitation, he marched straight in and cut the line, stunning the group of girls behind him. He raised his voice and called out, "Hello, give me 10 of every type of ice cream you have." "Thanks." The girls were left blinking in disbelief. Whispers rippled through them. Was he serious? Could he even afford it? And wasn't he ridiculously handsome? While ordering, their impressions shifted instantly, and their eyes practically sparkled at him after such a bold display. The receptionist, however, had her own concerns. She thought the very thing they had been giggling about earlier. This ice cream assassin wasn't cheap, and this handsome guy didn't look like someone from a wealthy family. She hesitantly asked again if he was serious, reminding him that 10 of each category would exceed 20,000 yuan. Chun simply kept a straight face. One of the girls clicked her tongue and mocked him outright, saying that with those shabby clothes, if he could really afford it, she would cow out to him right there in public. Chun glanced at her calmly and asked whether she meant those words. She fired back, asking if he seriously expected her to cow out to him and what level he thought he was to act so pretentious. Chen's smirk only widened. He told her he had tried to give her a way out, but she had insisted on jumping in herself. Now she was definitely kowtowing today. Even Jesus couldn't stop it. He declared that much with confidence. The girl sputtered in frustration, completely thrown off. Chun then turned back to the counter, still wearing that amused smirk, and told the staff to package all the ice cream by portion. He would take everything. He lifted his phone and showed the completed payment transaction. The receptionist nearly froze on the spot. After staring at the screen, she stammered that she needed to call the manager and asked him to wait a moment. The manager hurried out the moment he heard the commotion. Introducing himself as He, he politely asked what Mr. Chin needed. Chun glanced around the store and casually told him to calculate the total cost of all the ice cream in the shop, adding that they didn't need to stay open for business today. Manager Fei froze for a second, then quickly checked his tablet. With a respectful bow, he asked Chun to wait a moment. Inside, however, his thoughts were spinning. Who exactly was this young master? With a single sentence, he had practically covered the store's entire monthly turnover. Despite the luxury prices, very few people actually bought these ice creams. Most customers only looked. When the calculations were done, He reported that the items currently on display were worth about 70,000 yuan, and counting the inventory and storage, the total value reached around 1 million. Chun only smirked at the number. In his mind, it wasn't expensive at all. If the apocalypse was coming anyway, there was no harm in clearing out their entire inventory. Worst case, he could just stay home and eat ice cream during doomsday. He told manager Fei he would transfer a deposit of 300,000 yuan first, then instructed him to deliver all the ice cream in storage to the address he provided. Manager Fei promised to handle everything personally. Chun then turned to the group of stunned girls and generously told them to choose whatever ice cream they wanted. The entire shop was on him today. Chaos immediately broke out. The girls squealed, gushed, and practically sparkled with excitement. One shrieked that it was amazing. Another declared that he was insanely rich. Another sighed that the more she looked at him, the more handsome he seemed. But Chun had one more thing to settle. He glanced at the girl who had mocked him earlier and calmly reminded her that the offer didn't apply to her. He was still waiting for her kowtow. The color drained from her face. Embarrassed and flustered, she stammered before finally bending as low as she could, wishing she had never opened her mouth in the first place. When everything was settled, the sun dipped toward the horizon, marking what had turned out to be a rather beautiful day for Chun. He sat on a bench enjoying one of his newly acquired ice creams. As expected from a top-tier shop, the taste and texture were phenomenal. He then took out a certain item, one that allowed anything stored inside to remain in perfect condition forever. That meant fresh ice cream anytime he wanted. With such a treasure, he thought even celebrities and young models could be summoned with a snap of his fingers. The thought alone made him grin. He hadn't expected it, but even his ability had been reborn with him. In his past life, abilities had only begun, awakening one after another after the apocalyptic disaster struck. The fact that his had surfaced early this time was something he couldn't fully explain, but he knew one thing for certain: it would become his greatest trump card from now on. He let out a quiet sigh, thinking about how many tasks still lay ahead of him. Just as he was gathering his thoughts, his phone suddenly rang. The ringtone lit up the screen with the words, "Ring, ring, the little fairy is calling." The moment he saw it, a wave of unpleasant memories surged up. The caller ID couldn't have been more irritating. Lu Wenqing. He clicked his tongue and muttered to himself that of all people, it had to be her. What rotten timing. He had been having such a good day. Chun picked up the phone while murmuring Lu Wenqing's name. The moment he did, a wave of memories surged up. Memories of how after his parents passed away, she had appeared in his life like a savior. Back then, he had been foolish enough to believe she was his light. never realizing she had been eyeing nothing more than the small inheritance his parents left behind. He remembered how she used to lean close and relay what her mother supposedly said, that if he wanted to marry her, the fully paid apartment in the city center had to be put under her name along with a bride price of 880,000 yuan. To him now, it was obvious she had been a bottomless pit, reaching out again and again until his savings were drained. She always justified it by claiming it was all for their little family and even encouraged him to sell his family's old house, saying it was outdated anyway. Eventually, she had even pushed to sell the ancestral home passed down for generations just to secure that luxury apartment she wanted. He recalled a moment later in their relationship when he had been shoved to the ground while she introduced him to a so-called young master, saying he was the person she had mentioned, the one who supposedly met the requirements for special materials. That was the instant he finally understood the truth. During the apocalypse, he had done everything he could to protect her, but she had sold him out to a stronger backer without hesitation. The backer had taken one glance at him and commented that there was nothing special about him, wondering aloud if they really needed to bother devouring someone like that. In the end, he hadn't even left behind a complete corpse. Now, with a second chance in hand, Chun simply smirked to himself. Since Lu Wenqing had come looking for him on her own, he felt it was only right to settle the old score. Later, at a high-end hotel, he answered her call with an affectionate tone, asking what was wrong. She explained that she had been out with friends and had accidentally lost a gold necklace she loved, claiming she was heartbroken over it. Chan immediately acted as though buying another was the obvious solution, but she insisted one wouldn't be enough and told him to buy 10 so she could rotate them. He played along, repeating her demand and pretending to agree easily. She asked when he had become so generous, and he replied that he had recently been lucky. He told her he had invested in virtual currency and made a small profit, so it was only natural to spend money on her. Hearing that, she sounded worried, asking if he had fallen for some scam. Saying virtual currency seemed strange to her, Chun went on to explain that whether the investment was a scam or not didn't matter. She could simply watch whether he made money in the next round. He claimed that playing small had become boring and that he intended to go big this time by borrowing a substantial principal to invest even more. Since the loan required a witness, he asked her to help out, promising that once it was approved, he would give her 5% of the loan amount as compensation for her trouble. Just as he was speaking, a man's irritated voice sounded in the background, asking why she was taking so long to get ready. Lu immediately hurried to him, calling him honey and saying she would be done soon. Inwardly, however, she was comparing the profits. Spending a night with the older men earned her only 5,000 yuan, while simply signing a paper for Chun could earn her 50,000. To her, the risk seemed non-existent. It was just a signature, and she believed Chun Sha to be too timid to ever trick her. Once the call ended, Chun thought to himself that he would be waiting for Lu Wenqing. After that, he shifted his focus to preparations, deciding it was time to build a fortress. He planned to turn the place into a structure of iron and copper within a month. He wanted bulletproof composite glass installed on all windows along with hidden burglar bars, walls reinforced into 3m thick bulletproof exteriors, and seismic fortification capable of withstanding intensity level 8 quakes. He continued listing requirements: 3-meter security glass, a full rooftop covered in solar panels with an independent energy system, air purification and filtration capable of blocking external toxins, an autonomous ecosystem with a 72-hour oxygen supply and internal water cycling devices, explosion-proof doors, and an access control system combining biometric and mechanical verification. The contractor listening to all this began to sweat, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the demands. Inwardly, he wondered whether Chun was some kind of doomsday prepper suffering from apocalypse delusions or whether he had simply watched too many sci-fi movies. Before he could say anything, Chun stepped closer with a serious expression and asked whether it couldn't be done, reminding him that his resume claimed he was a defense specialist who had designed safe rooms for top tycoons. The contractor tentatively mentioned that Mr. Chen's requirements were extremely unique and high-end, though the budget might be an issue. Inwardly, however, he was thrilled, already assuming Chun was another wealthy man brainwashed by doomsday theories, someone with money to burn. Before he could say more, Chun displayed a hefty sum and stated that he would put down a 1 million yuan deposit and the contractor could name the remaining balance himself. The contractor was stunned. Being allowed to name the price sounded unreal, and in his mind he was already celebrating his luck. Convinced he had just met a rich fool who could fund his path to financial freedom in one go, Chun shook his hand enthusiastically, adding that he valued materials and quality above all else, and everything needed to pass inspection. The contractor promised confidently that there would be no problem, assuring Chun that the place would be built solid as a rock. Meanwhile, both men were thinking the exact opposite of what they were saying. Chun was silently telling himself that once the apocalypse arrived, the contractor wouldn't even be able to find him, let alone collect any remaining payment. The contractor, on the other hand, was already planning how thoroughly he was going to overcharge him. Both sides were preparing to rip each other off without the slightest guilt. Later, Chun noted to himself that the fortress construction was settled. The next step was gathering supplies. Medicine, food, and daily necessities would be easy to acquire. The real threat in the apocalypse wasn't nature, but the human heart. After society collapsed, cold weapons could be bought at any hardware store, but firearms, those capable of delivering fatal blows, were far more difficult to obtain. He pulled out his phone and began searching for underground channels that dealt in such items. After scrolling for a while, one particular message caught his attention. The seller claimed to have first-hand sources and access to hidden channels, boasting that there was nothing a buyer could imagine that he couldn't procure. He emphasized honest dealings and safety above all else. Chun immediately sent a reply asking how to purchase. The seller responded that he would send the address privately and instructed Chun to arrive that night at 8 p.m. sharp. Later that evening, Chun made his way to the designated location. Noting as he walked that the seller had chosen a place bustling with people, he was still considering the implications when a sudden commotion caught his attention. A girl was sprinting desperately through the crowd with several men shouting after her. One of them barked at her to stop while another cursed furiously demanding she halt. The girl, terrified, kept running. A moment later, she darted behind Chun as if seeking shelter. The pursuers grew even more agitated, one yelling that she should keep running if she dared, and another snarling that she must be tired of living to cheat someone in his territory. The girl pleaded for help, her voice trembling. Chun had originally intended to focus on his own plans for the night, but the moment he heard her voice and saw her face clearly, he froze. It was Lu Wenqing. He couldn't understand how she had ended up in a place like this. The sight left him momentarily stunned, unable to believe what he was seeing. One of the men managed to grab the girl and warn Chun not to come any closer. The girl was crying uncontrollably, and Chun, surprised, realized he recognized her. It was Li Yuyu, the top student goddess from his middle school days. The girl admired by countless boys. He couldn't understand how someone like her had ended up in such a situation. While he tried to process it, one of the thugs demanded that she hand over the money and said she shouldn't even think about leaving otherwise. She kept crying as more of the men gathered behind their leader, clearly waiting their turn. One of them suggested they stop wasting time. If she couldn't repay the money, she could pay in other ways instead. Laughing crudely, Chen's expression darkened and he ordered them to let her go. The thugs finally turned their attention to him. Their grip on the girl didn't loosen, and one of them, angrier than the rest, stepped 99 forward with clenched fists, demanding to know where this reckless kid had come from. He mocked Chun for trying to play the hero and threatened to kill him first. The moment he swung, Chun easily avoided the punch, grabbed the man's arm and twisted it until the thug cried out in pain. Then, with a single strike to the face, Chun sent him flying. Dust and smoke rose around them as Chun stood there unfazed. Inwardly, he noted with surprise that the strange system assisting him was something he had never possessed in his previous life. Liu Yu also recognized him, calling out his name in disbelief, but the man, still restraining her, tightened his hold and warned Chun not to move or he would kill her. Before the threat even finished leaving his mouth, Chun hurled a stone straight at the man's forehead, knocking him backward. The remaining thugs hesitated, suddenly intimidated. A moment later, another young man rushed into the scene, scolding them loudly for ganging up on a girl and asking where their shame had gone. The thugs instantly cursed at him for interfering and charged. Chun and the newcomer fought side by side without needing to exchange a single word. When someone attacked from the front, Chun took him down with a punch. When someone tried to ambush from behind, the other guy blocked and countered. One by one, the punks collapsed, and even when they were down, Chun made sure to kick them away to keep them from getting up again. When the last of them fell, Chun gave a cold command for them to scram. At that moment, a notification echoed in his mind. Fear +1, panic +1, severe pain +1, despair +1, humiliation +1, negative emotion value exceeded 10 for the first time. Spatial expansion authority unlocked. While the punk stumbled away in fear, another prompt echoed in Chen's mind, reminding him to harvest diligently so the ability could grow stronger. Chun found the concept of collecting negative emotions amusing and mentally noted how interesting this new power was. Li Yuyu, still shaken, sat on the ground and thanked him, saying she hadn't expected to meet him there. Chun helped her up gently, asked if she was hurt, and even handed her something to cover herself with. She expressed her gratitude again, but said she had urgent matters to take care of and needed to leave quickly. Chun simply reminded her to be careful. The young man who had rushed in earlier approached him enthusiastically, praising his hero saving the beauty moment and introducing himself as Mukong. When Chun heard the name, he realized fate had saved him some trouble. Mukong was exactly the person he had arranged to meet. Mukong was surprised and called it destiny, then excitedly struck a pose and said, "Sky King covers Earth Tiger." Chun responded by calling him a fool. Mukong froze, completely thrown off. A series of notifications immediately appeared in Chen's mind. Dumbfounded +1, dazed +1, awkwardness +1. Chen cleared his throat and tried to ease the moment by responding with another nonsense phrase, saying he meant it as a joke to lighten the mood. He even mimicked the silly pose to reduce Mukong's embarrassment. Mukong burst out laughing, calling Chen unbelievable and then motioned for him to follow. They moved into a secluded area where Mukong opened a box filled with firearms. He explained that they were Russian-made, durable, and reliable, but warned that they didn't come with many bullets, so Chen would need to use them wisely. Since Chen seemed skilled and interesting, Mukong offered him a friendship price, saying it was his way of forming a connection. Chen accepted and thanked him. Mukong added that Chen's movement suggested he was an expert, and if there were no further questions, they could finalize the deal. But before he could finish, Chen casually asked whether the gun came with a silencer, whether there was a warranty card, and if Mukong could throw in an extra box of bullets. Mukong was speechless. Internally, he wondered if Chen even understood what a friendship price meant. Items like these usually sparked bidding wars on the black market, often selling for twice the cost, and this guy was asking for warranties and freebies as if he were buying home appliances. Mukong felt himself grow more and more frustrated, thinking Chen might as well just rob him. A new notification flickered through Chen's mind, noting the spike in negative emotions. Shock +1, heartache +1, speechless +1. Seeing Mukong's face twist in pain, Chen quickly told him not to worry about it. If the extras weren't possible, he said they could forget it. He added that they would just follow the price already agreed on and that he would transfer the money immediately. Inwardly, Chen marked the deal as complete. He now had supplies, weapons, and the beginnings of a fortress. Only one final piece remained. Later that night, inside an extravagant hotel suite, a woman in a red dress stood by the window, bathed in moonlight. When she turned, Chen wrapped an arm around her and complained that she had taken too long and kept him waiting on sore legs. Lu Wenqing asked whether the thing he mentioned was truly risk-free. Chen reassured her sweetly, claiming it was only a formality and that he loved her too much to ever scam her. In her mind, however, Lu dismissed any notion of danger. She told herself that this pathetic S nearly sold his own blood once just to buy her a handbag. He was far too busy worshipping her to dare deceive her. Later at Boss Jiang's office, Jiang Yang praised her decisiveness and even complimented her handwriting as she signed the contract. She handed the documents back without a second thought. Jiang, on the other hand, was practically smirking inside. He thought she genuinely believed she was only acting as a guarantor, when in truth, the moment she signed, the debt legally became hers, and when she inevitably failed to repay it, he had other methods in mind for collecting, methods he was already imagining with satisfaction. Lu Wenqing continued watching him smugly, unaware of the trap she'd walked into. Meanwhile, Chen silently observed everything, thinking to himself that she was signing her own indenture contract. Her greed, foolishness, and self-confidence would end up paying off the remainder of his safe house's construction costs perfectly. Everything had gone smoother than he expected, and he silently thanked her. A short while later, the contractor proudly showed Chen the completed safe house. He assured Chen that every material used met the highest military standards: heat insulation, soundproofing, explosion-proofing, drill-proofing, even the structural strength to withstand multiple small-scale nuclear shock waves. Chen acknowledged the quality and thanked him. The contractor laughed heartily and told Chen to call him whenever he needed more work. Finally, inside the finished safe house, Chen took a moment to sit down and relax. Just then, a broadcast echoed from his screen. Affected by unprecedented super-strong solar flare activity, the entire globe will experience continuous extreme high-temperature weather. The news report continued, warning that temperatures across many regions were expected to break historical records and urging all citizens to take immediate protective measures. Chen listened quietly, then picked up the gun lying beside him. He remarked to himself that the moment had finally arrived. Outside his reinforced walls, the world was beginning to ignite. Heat waves surging, flames blooming across cities and panic spreading everywhere. He walked to the window and watched as the world outside descended into burning chaos. He stood watching the world burn, secure and ready for whatever came next. The news anchor continued reporting that a super-strong solar flare had erupted, causing violent disturbances in Earth's ionosphere. Extreme high-temperature phenomena were already appearing across the globe, with daytime highs expected to reach as much as 45 degrees Celsius. Citizens were advised to take heat-stroke precautions and avoid going outside at noon unless absolutely necessary. Chen listened without surprise. He already knew this was coming. In his mind, he noted that the temperature had begun to rise, but this was only the beginning. Compared to his past life, it even felt like things were escalating faster and more brutally this time. Outside, panic spread among ordinary people. Everyone wanted to hide indoors. Yet, even inside their homes, The heat was suffocating and unbearable. Someone complained that it was already unbearably hot early in the morning and wondered how long such extreme temperatures would last. Soon, a street loudspeaker crackled to life. A vendor loudly warned his neighbors that the weather was deadly and claimed he had heard the temperature would keep rising next week. He shouted about supply shortages, saying water and electricity would soon become scarce, and urged everyone to stock up immediately or risk having nothing to drink later. He even claimed this was his final batch of goods. Yet inwardly the man was delighted. To him the heatwave was practically money knocking at his door, and he would be a fool not to seize the opportunity to get rich. Nearby, a woman complained that his melons were priced far too high and asked if he could sell them cheaper. Another woman examined the melons, which looked plump and juicy. Seeing them, the vendor suddenly became overly enthusiastic, praising their beauty and eagerly approaching them. He boasted about how sweet the melons were and offered to cut one open for a taste. If they bought two, he promised a discount and even threw in a free pack of tissues. The women listened cautiously, growing increasingly uncomfortable as the man leaned in closer and became overly familiar. He pushed his melons toward them, even hinting that if the night stayed hot, they could come by his place to cool off. Nervous, one of the women backed away and quickly said they would just buy one, but the vendor refused to give up, stepping closer again and urging them to buy more and stock up, insisting that with weather like this, no one could guarantee there would be anything left to sell tomorrow. A few more people soon gathered around the stall. Among them was an elderly man who politely asked whether the boss could sell the water a little cheaper. The moment the vendor saw him, his expression turned ugly. He snapped that his was a small business and that there would be absolutely no bargaining. Clearly eager to chase the old man away, Chun stood nearby, watching the scene unfold, and immediately recognized the man. He inwardly clicked his tongue, realizing it was Lo. Memories from his past life surfaced instantly. This man had once made his life miserable. Back then, Li Fu had loved shouting in public, accusing him of stealing and calling people over to watch. Even when Chun had only tried to pick up something that had fallen and return it, Chun remembered desperately trying to explain that he hadn't stolen anything, that he had only seen the item on the ground and wanted to put it back. But Li Fu had refused to listen, sneering that no one would be that kind-hearted. He had pointed at Chen's shabby clothes and insisted that someone like him couldn't have clean hands, threatening to call the police if he didn't pay up. The surrounding crowd had joined in, looking at Chun with disdain. Some had muttered that someone so young shouldn't be stealing, while others claimed his silence proved his guilt. Even as Chun insisted he hadn't taken anything, no one believed him. Every ounce of humiliation from that day came flooding back. Now standing here again, Chen's gaze fell on a bag of potato chips marked with a manager's recommendation tag. He picked it up, thinking he might as well eat some. Then, with deliberate calm, he asked Li Dafu whether the chips were made of gold or somehow able to prevent heat stroke. Questioning why they were being sold at such an outrageous price, Li Fu turned sharply to glare at him. At the same time, a notification appeared in Chen's mind, noting a surge of negative emotion. Disdain +3. The vendor immediately snatched the chips back and shouted at Chun to get lost if he couldn't afford them, demanding to know whether he could compensate them if he damaged the goods. Another notification followed. Irritation +6. Chun merely smiled faintly and remarked that Li Fu was holding on to so many treasures that he wondered whether the men could even sleep at night, suggesting he should be careful. After all, things had a way of getting stolen. Boss Li suddenly felt as if he'd been cursed and flew into a rage, demanding to know who Chun was trying to hex. He threatened to beat him up, sneering that the heat must have fried his brain. Chun, however, calmly told him to settle down and casually asked whether he'd been suffering lately from insomnia, vivid dreams, weakness, and night sweats. That question caught Boss Li off guard. He muttered that he did have some of those symptoms and even wondered if there might be a phone issue with his warehouse. Shan hushed him confidently, saying he'd known it all along and pointing out that Boss Li's intang looked dark. He explained that it was a typical case of deficiency. That was enough to completely set Boss Li off. He cursed Chin back, shouting that Chun and his entire family were the ones with deficiencies and swung a fist at him. Chun easily dodged the punch. He casually picked up a lollipop, popped it into his mouth, and advised Boss Li to take better care of his health. He warned that excessive anger damaged the body, especially someone in Boss Li's condition. As he spoke, he tossed a few coins onto the ground and coldly remarked that if Boss Li didn't pay attention, he might die young. He then turned away, savoring the sweetness of the lollipop, leaving Boss Li staring at the money on the ground. A notification immediately rang out in Chen's mind. Detected strong negative emotion. Anger +20. As night fell, a stray cat passed through the streets with something clutched in its mouth. Inside his safe house, Chin gazed at the night sky and reflected on his past life, remembering how he had swallowed his anger and allowed others to trample him. This time, he intended to reclaim everything with interest. He then recalled that he had unlocked spatial expansion earlier, and the emotions Li Fu had just provided were perfectly sufficient to use it. A notification followed. Consumed negative emotion. 20. Storage space expanded to 200 cubic meters. An unseen aura enveloped Chun, and for a brief moment, it felt as though his hand brushed against a doorway leading into another dimension. When dawn arrived, the heat was already overwhelming. Even sparrows struggled under the rising temperature. On the street below, Bosley returned to his stall and froze. Wherever he looked, there was only one thing waiting for him. Nothing. Stunned, he shouted in disbelief, demanding to know where all his goods had gone, and who could have done this. From the safety of his fortified home, Chun calmly sipped his soda as another notification appeared. Negative emotion plus 66. The drink tasted great, but he knew this was only the beginning. Much more was yet to come. Bosley completely lost it. He ran around his store in a panic, shouting and cursing, demanding to know who had stolen his goods. He collapsed to the ground, almost crying, unable to accept what had happened to him. This was worse than the apocalypse itself. The end of the world didn't scare him nearly as much as losing all his stock overnight. The people nearby started whispering among themselves. One person wondered aloud whether Bosley had staged everything himself just to jack up prices. Another worried about how they were supposed to survive if even the supermarket was empty. An old woman claimed she had seen a dark shadow drifting through the area last night, and someone else immediately questioned her, asking if she was sure. Bosley, however, refused to believe any of it. He shouted that it was impossible, that there was no such thing as ghosts. But even as he yelled, notifications silently stacked up in Chen's mind. Strong negative emotion detected. Anger plus 12, fear plus 3, suspicion plus 4. Chan stood nearby, watching everything unfold like a spectator at a show. He casually ate his snacks, finding that snacks tasted especially good when paired with other people's suffering. With a faint smile, he commented to himself that Li Fu's emotional output was impressively stable. As he reached into the bag again, he deliberately let the packaging show. The moment Bosley saw it, his eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. He screamed that those were his goods and charged forward like a madman. Chun calmly raised the bag and asked whether the chips were made of gold or somehow able to prevent heatstroke since they were being sold at such an outrageous price. Bosley immediately recognized him and roared in fury. Chun continued casually asking if Bosley could really sleep peacefully while hoarding so many treasures, warning him to be careful or thieves might target him. Bosley finally snapped, grabbing at Chun and demanding to know where he got the chips. Accusing him of theft while shaking with rage, Chun took a step back, pretending to be startled, and calmly reminded him that accusations required evidence. He even pointed out how strange it was that the entire supermarket was empty now, not even a single snack left behind. Then with an almost innocent tone, he offered the half-eaten bag in his hand, asking if Bosley would like it. Bosley stood there trembling, his face pale with fury and disbelief. Completely at a loss for words, Bosley exploded in anger, shouting that Chun had cursed him and that now all his goods were gone. He accused Chun of being the thief and demanded an explanation. In his mind, even if Chun hadn't actually stolen anything, he could still squeeze something out of him to make up for the loss. At the very least, he could use him as a scapegoat. Another notification quietly appeared in Chen's vision. Strong negative emotion detected. Anger plus 18. Chun, however, remained calm. He casually pointed out that other stores also sold the same chips and asked why Bosley was so sure it had to be him. He reminded everyone that the shelves were already empty when he arrived. If anyone wanted proof, they could check the surveillance or search his place. He even added that if they found any of Bosley's goods there, he would compensate tenfold. That sentence immediately made the surrounding onlookers murmur. Some pointed out that other shops also sold the same brand. Others recalled that Bosley had been complaining about prices only the day before. The atmosphere quickly shifted. Bosley felt his scalp tingle. Something wasn't right. How had this kid suddenly turned the situation around so cleanly? Before he could think further, Chun calmly added that if nothing was found, then the generator sitting behind the shop would belong to him as compensation. Furious and cornered, Bosley agreed on the spot. Convinced that Chun was bluffing, he grabbed Chun and dragged him along, declaring that once the truth came out, he would see how smug Chun still felt. When they reached Chen's residence, the crowd gasped. The moment the door opened, they were greeted by a scene completely beyond expectations. The interior looked nothing like a normal home. Everything was neat, fortified, and shockingly well stocked. Expensive equipment lined the walls. Sealed supplies were stacked neatly, and even large energy units were visible. Whispers broke out immediately. So he was hiding this much wealth. When did he become this rich? This looks like a fortress. Even Bosley froze in place. His eyes widened as he stared at the interior, disbelief washing over his face. This wasn't a home. It was a bunker. Chun turned to him calmly and asked if he was done searching, even offering to let him pry up the floorboards if he wished. Bosley's confidence completely collapsed. His face turned pale and he quickly waved his hands, saying there was no need. He mumbled something about checking other places and tried to leave, but before he could escape, Chun reached out and grabbed his arm, stopping him cold. With a faint smile, Chun reminded him about the agreement they had just made, that if nothing was found, the generator would belong to him. Boss Lee stiffened. His face twisted as he tried to backpedal, claiming it was all a misunderstanding and asking whether things really needed to be taken this far, but the crowd was already watching, and Chen's calm gaze made it clear this time there would be no backing out. Chun calmly asked him why he hadn't thought about taking a step back when he was framing others before. At that moment, another notification popped up in Chen's mind. Strong negative emotion detected. Impatience +8. The onlookers began whispering among themselves. Some muttered that a man who couldn't even keep his word deserved what he got. Others scoffed, saying it served him right. Hearing those voices, Li Fu's face twisted with rage. He snapped back, accusing Chun of going too far and shouting that he was giving him face already. Then without warning, he swung his fist toward Chun. Chun easily blocked the attack and twisted the man's arm in one clean motion. A sharp cry rang out as Li Fu dropped to the ground, clutching his hand in agony. A new notification appeared. Strong negative emotion detected. Pain +73. Gritting his teeth, Li Fu finally gave in, shouting that he would move the generator right away and begging Chun to stop. Chun calmly reminded him to hurry, pointing out that once the temperature rose further, going outside would become impossible. He added coolly that without a generator, surviving the coming days would be difficult. Another wave of emotional data poured in. Humiliation +30. Pain +86. Fear +101. Chun watched without expression, knowing everything was unfolding exactly as planned. Just as things settled, his phone rang again. It was Lu W. Jing. Her voice sounded anxious as she said that several unfamiliar men had been following her for the past few days. They looked like debt collectors and she didn't understand why. Wasn't she just signing something before? Chin already knew the answer. He simply smiled faintly to himself, standing quietly as he listened. This too was part of the plan, and it was only just beginning. There is more to come. The bad girl demanded to know why people from the Dai gang were looking for her and asked if Chun had lied to her. She sounded angry and suspicious. Chun replied calmly, telling her not to overthink it. He said he had done so much for her and poured his heart out. So how could he possibly lie? Hearing her doubt him made him sound hurt, at least on the surface. Inside, however, he was thinking that those Dai gang idiots were even more impatient than he expected. He then asked her if the people following her knew where she lived and what exactly they had said. The bad girl told him they didn't know her address yet, and that she had taken side roads to shake them off. She warned him not to play tricks on her and demanded to know what was really going on. Chun reassured her, saying she was overthinking things and that she probably mistook someone else for them. As he spoke, he deliberately let her see the food and supplies around him. The moment she noticed them, her eyes widened in disbelief. She couldn't help asking how he still had so much. Chin didn't explain. He wanted her to see it for herself. He casually told her that he had more than just that. Inside, the bad girl was shocked. With the heat growing worse by the day and supplies becoming scarce, only the rich could afford this kind of food. She started wondering where he had gotten it all. Could it be that he had really struck it big? Chun calmly took a sip of his drink and commented on how good it tasted in this weather. Then he casually ate some premium food right in front of her. When she saw the salmon, her eyes lit up. She couldn't hide her desire and admitted she really wanted some. Chun asked gently whether she had enough to eat where she was staying. She replied that she was scared living alone, saying she constantly felt like someone was watching her. Her voice sounded weak and pitiful, but deep down she was carefully calculating her next move. She then suggested that she could stay with him for a few days, hinting that she could keep him company. Her tone was soft and tempting. Before he could respond, she ended the call. Chun lowered his phone slowly, a faint smile forming on his face. Hook, line, and sinker. Lu Wan Jing, you really are too cheap. Chun called her back and told her that the weather was only going to get hotter. He reminded her that she had always said a girl shouldn't casually give out her address, acting all mysterious and refusing to let him visit. Now, though, he told her to send the address over. He said he would go pick her up later once the temperature dropped a bit. The bad girl immediately changed her attitude. She said that times were different now, that the situation was special. Since he was her boyfriend, who else could she rely on if not him? She quickly sent over the address and told him to come get her. Sean told her to stay put and not wander around, reminding her to be good and wait for him. After hanging up, the bad girl smirked to herself. In her heart, she thought that a simp would always be a.s. Give him a bit of sweetness and he would come running, tail wagging. Meanwhile, Chin already understood everything perfectly. He thought about how she used to act all high and mighty, never letting him even step inside her community. Now, just for a bit of food, she was willingly handing over her address. The contrast almost made him laugh. He put his phone down just as a knock sounded at the door. A woman's voice called out asking if she could come in. It was Auntie Wong from next door. He opened the door slightly and she immediately started complaining that her air conditioner had broken and that it was unbearably hot. She said the children couldn't stand it anymore and suggested they come inside for a while, saying neighbors should help each other. Chun looked at her calmly and reminded her how when he was younger, he and his mother used to pick up plastic bottles downstairs. Back then, she had pointed at them, called them beggars, and even told the security guards to chase them away. The memory clearly made her uncomfortable. She hurriedly said that was a long time ago and accused him of being heartless for holding on to old grudges. Chun nodded lightly and replied that maybe he really was heartless, but at least he had air conditioning now. Then he shut the door in her face. Outside, Auntie Wong continued yelling insults, calling him heartless and even cursing his parents. But Chun didn't care anymore. A notification quietly appeared in his vision. Detected strong negative emotion. Anger plus 18. Detected strong negative emotion. Anger plus 20. Chun felt nothing but calm. He had long decided that he would only help those who deserved it. Everyone else could fend for themselves. After that, Chun calmly took out his phone, swapped the SIM card, and turned on his computer. He made a call, his tone casual, as if discussing something trivial. He told the person on the other end that he knew where Lu Jing lived and had already sent the address over. He even added that she lived alone and would be easy to find. Once the call ended, Chun leaned back and looked out the window. The sky outside was still blazing hot, the air heavy and suffocating, yet he felt strangely comfortable. The heat didn't bother him anymore. In fact, compared to the calm spreading through his chest, the outside world felt distant and insignificant. He let out a quiet breath and thought to himself that the real show was finally about to begin. The bad girl was looking in the mirror, admiring her own beauty and feeding her ego. She thought about how soon she'd be able to move into Chun Zhao's air-conditioned room. She reminisced about the kind of life he would give her and thought that only a carefree life like that was worthy of her. She kept daydreaming, completely enjoying herself. Later, she lit one up and continued checking out her belongings. Suddenly, loud knocking started at the door. She went to open it, saying that they were early while thinking to herself that he really was a qualified S. Always so eager. But the person standing there was not who she expected, and it wasn't just one person. There were several of them. She immediately asked why they were here and how they knew where she lived. Before she could react, one of the men pushed her aside and said that the money owed to the Dai gang was due today. She quickly replied that the money was borrowed by Qin Xiao and that he was the one who tricked her into signing, telling them to go find him instead. The men calmly pulled out the contract and said it was signed clearly in black and white and whoever signed it had to pay. No excuses. At that moment, she finally understood. The man she once thought was a brainless S had already woken up and started using his head. The goon then told the others to search the place and take anything valuable. As they began rummaging through her things, she tried to stop them, but they shoved her aside. She cried out that she was calling Qin Xiao and that he would be here soon. One of the men ignored her and casually sat down on the couch, looking around at her jewelry. Seeing them touch her things made her panic. She didn't want to lose any of it. The goon looked over the items and said that this little amount wasn't even enough to cover the interest. He added that his brothers had come all this way in the heat and couldn't leave empty-handed. She desperately tried to stop them again, saying the money was with Chunia, not her. The goon smirks as the woman says that he also has a lot of supplies and is coming to pick her up soon. She tells them to wait for him and then ask him for the money. But when she tries to call, all she hears is a cold automated voice saying that the number she dialed is currently unavailable. She freezes for a moment, unable to believe what's happening. She tries again, panic rising, only to hear the same message again. No matter how many times she calls, no one answers. Her breathing grows heavy, sweat forming on her face as her expression slowly darkens. She wonders how this could be happening. She insists that he must be busy and didn't hear the phone, saying she'll call again right away. But the goon snatches the phone away and tells her she's really stupid. He says she actually believed that guy would pay for her and that it's obvious he sold her out. He adds that the man never planned to pay anything back from the start. At that moment, the bad girl finally realizes the truth. The one she thought was a fool was never a fool at all. This time, she was the one being played. She weakly asks what he's talking about. The goon tells her to shut up and stop struggling. She cries and tells them to let her go, saying they should go find Qin Xiao instead because he's the one with the money and supplies. But the goon ignores her and drags her away. No matter how much she screams, no one comes to help her. This time, there's no one left to save her. All the bad things she once did to others are finally coming back to her. Meanwhile, Chun Xiao is calmly enjoying his drinks while his phone keeps ringing beside him. He doesn't bother answering. In his mind, he thinks that Lu Wanjing should get a proper taste of the apocalypse. As night falls and people hide indoors to escape the heat, the goon drags the crying woman away. He asks her again what good things Chun Xiao has at his place. She tells him he has air conditioning, cold drinks, and plenty of food. She says that's where everything is and that she really has nothing left. Hearing this, the goon's eyes light up. He thinks to himself that this sounds like a big catch. Then he tells the others it's time to go. As they leave, the woman glares in rage and thinks about Chunyao, cursing him in her heart and wishing him a horrible death. She is about to begin her own revenge plot. In the night, a lot of people were moving around really hurriedly with a lot of weapons in their hands. A voice says, right this way. That little beast Chun Xiao lives right here, at his home. The AC is on 24 hours a day and he has plenty to eat and drink. Another says that he is also extremely stingy and won't even share a sip of water with them. The auntie who previously came for that AC is really angry and frustrated with him and now wants to get back at him with these mafia boys. The mafia boys are also happy as they follow her. The leader of them says that old hag, you led the way well. Once they get the stuff, there will be plenty of benefits for her so she can rest assured about the service she is doing. The hag says, oh my, thank you, Brother Zeng. He is truly generous. No wonder he could become a big boss. He is way too amazing and no one can be above him. As she is saying this, in her mind, she thinks about how that Chin guy is going to get it really bad. She feels extremely happy and is even praying for it to happen. She imagines Chun crying and begging, saying that, big brother, spare his life. He admits Auntie Wong was wrong and says that from now on, her home is his home and she can live wherever she wants. Auntie Wong, thinking about all of this, sneers inwardly and thinks that she wants to see how arrogant he can be this time. They keep moving forward toward a road. Zong says, this kid definitely has something going on. Even from outside, they can see the way the place is built is extremely crazy. It almost feels like this guy knows the future. One of the goons gets really excited and says, Brother Zong, watch him kick the door down. He promises Zong is going to enjoy it and tells everyone to just watch. However, as he rushes forward in excitement, he steps on a spot that suddenly triggers a trap. He gets zapped really hard as if Zeus himself struck him with lightning. While being electrocuted, he cries out in pain, yelling out over and over again. Zong, standing behind him, is completely surprised. He has no idea what the hell is happening and wonders if this guy is an idiot. The others rush over to him and one of them says this trash cramped up for no reason and asks if he is stupid, but the moment they touch him, they also get zapped back as the electricity transfers into their bodies. Now they all feel the same thing he felt earlier. Now they finally understand why this guy cramped up because they are also crying and shouting for help. They scream and beg, saying, help me, help me. The zap of Zeus is just way too powerful. Zong, the auntie, and the others are now really scared. They have no idea what this even is. The auntie was hoping to see Chun crying and begging, but instead all she gets to see is these goons crying miserably. And this isn't even the end. An announcement and alarms start ringing all around them. Every one of them is completely dumbfounded, and it's like their dumbfounded levels are showing +2, +2, +3, and one guy is even at +5. Then the announcement plays and a voice says that good luck comes, wishing everyone good luck. Good luck brings joy and love. The announcement continues while everyone is still getting zapped. It says that good luck comes with good luck welcoming, good luck thriving and reaching the 4 Cs. It repeats again and again as a chant. The electricity keeps rising as this announcement. Prayer and poem keeps getting sung. The guys keep crying and yelling about electricity. At this moment, Zong finally understands what's going on and immediately steps back. He now knows why this craziness is happening. Suddenly, a notification appears showing detected intense negative emotion shock +45, detected intense negative emotion panic, +36, and detected intense negative emotion speechlessness, +22. Chun is comfortably enjoying his cozy environment. Watching all of this unfold on a screen, he casually says that their luck really isn't bad since they managed to step right onto the protective electric grid with 1 foot. Zong immediately shouts back and tells Chun to stop talking nonsense. He says that paying back debts is a matter of principle, and if Chun returns the money, they'll call it even. He has already recognized Chen's voice. Then the auntie chimes in and agrees, saying that Chun has money to renovate, but no money to pay his debts, and she questions how his parents even raised him. The hag still can't calm down at all and mutters that this one needs some special electricity. Chun, meanwhile, is leisurely eating his ice cream, watching everything while resting his foot on the table near the keyboard. He calmly tells Brother Jiang that the market price of his apartment is 4 million, which is more than enough to offset the 3 and 12 million debt. Then he continues through the speaker saying that as for Lu Wenqing's debt, they should go find her instead because it has nothing to do with him. After hearing this, Zong is extremely furious. In his mind, he thinks that right now supplies are king and everything else is nonsense. At the same time, Chen's voice comes through and he says, Brother Jiang should understand that a wise man submits to circumstances. He says that while he is in a good mood, they should part on good terms. He warns that if they keep looking for trouble, he won't be this polite anymore. After saying that, he presses the red button. The electricity instantly increases and the goons start crying and screaming. They shout that it hurts, that they can't hold on anymore and beg their boss for help. They are clearly suffering badly. Then the notification pops up saying, detected intense negative emotion pain plus 63 and detected intense negative emotion despair plus 77. Zong is truly scared now. He has no idea what kind of thing he has run into. So he chooses to retreat. While running away, he shouts that Chun Sha should just wait because the Dai gang won't let him off even though they are fleeing like cowards. Another notification appears saying, detected intense negative emotion anger plus 78. As the gang escapes, the auntie becomes the next target. She is terrified and left all alone, standing there and staring at the apartment. The surroundings turn red as the environment grows more intense, and she has no idea what to do next. Her dream of seeing Chun Sha beg and cry remains just a dream. As the temperature rises to 52 degrees Celsius, the whole area becomes deserted. No one wants to go outside anymore. For Chun, however, everything inside is cool and refreshing. He is enjoying life even more than before and casually watches TV. On the screen, the news anchor says that recently cases of death from heat stroke have appeared in many places, and citizens are advised to avoid going out as much as possible. Suddenly, his phone vibrates with notifications. When Chan checks it, he sees Auntie Wong going crazy in the comments, accusing him of not being human and saying that he has food, drinks, and AC while just watching the elderly and children die from the heat. Another comment from a shopkeeper boss calls him selfish and says he isn't fit to be a neighbor. Another says that in extraordinary times, resources must be shared, otherwise he is a murderer. Another claims they are about to die from the heat and asks if he has no shame. Yet another demands that Chun shall come out and give everyone an explanation. Chun calmly drinks his cold beverage and keeps swiping through the notifications. Then another system notification appears saying detected intense negative emotion jealousy plus 99. Detected intense negative emotion anger plus 101 and total negative emotion value has exceeded 1000 and rewards are being calculated. Looking at this, maybe Chun could start thinking after getting these rewards about how he could even post a proposal in the group chat. He could suggest that anyone who teaches the old hag lady a lesson and that evil supermarket guy would get food and water for 2 days. It would be the same strategy they are trying to use now, but he believes it would work extremely well. Best of all, it would be fair punishment if he really expands on this. He could control everyone after that. Maybe he could even share a little. In that case, sharing would actually be a great thing. Standing in front of his supplies, he takes out his phone and snaps quite a lot of pictures of all the crazy and amazing items piled up there. Then he posts them in the group chat and says that yes, his stockpile is indeed quite large and if anyone wants some, they can sign up. Immediately, a lady replies and says she is signing up and begs him to share a little. The hag also speaks up and says little Chun should send some food over to Auntie because her legs aren't good. The shopkeeper boss demands that Chun bring him 2 cases of water first. Someone else quickly adds a sign up +1, but things aren't going to be that easy. Chun replies and says that everyone should understand he isn't running a charity. If they want anything, they need to exchange something of equal value. Otherwise, there's no deal. And he refuses freeloaders. As soon as this message appears, the shopkeeper boss explodes and calls Chun a little brat, saying he's selfish and should hurry up and share the supplies if he still wants to be considered a good neighbor. The hag also jumps in, telling everyone to look at Chen's true colors and accusing him of refusing to save people who are dying. She curses him, saying he'll get his karma sooner or later, and that she wants to see it happen. Another guy threatens Chun, saying that if they starve to death, he shouldn't think he'll have it easy either. Chin doesn't care at all. He simply puts his phone aside, completely unimpressed. He can't believe how useless these people are. Just then, a new notification appears saying, negative emotion value has reached 3000. It announces a skill upgrade called Special Cut, beginner level. The effect is described as creating a microscopic rift in the air that cuts any object it touches within a 3m range. Chun finds this extremely interesting. He starts thinking more deeply about this so-called special cut. Spotting an apple nearby, he immediately tries it out. In an instant, the apple is sliced cleanly in half without any effort at all. The effect is crazy. Chin says, this is getting interesting. He never thought he would get something this powerful, but it's absolutely cool. He realizes he could even use it against those mafia guys if they keep hounding him too much. Outside, only a few cars are still running. Then a woman named Lu steps out of one of them. She's wearing a really flashy and nice dress, but appearances can be deceiving. She's the kind of bad woman people should stay away from, no matter how good she looks. Looking at her too much might even make someone like her more, which is dangerous. Unless someone thinks they can fix her, it's better not to get involved at all. There's also another person in the car. He's still thinking about ways to get back at Chun. He steps out as well and asks little Zong if the Chun Sha he mentioned lives here. Zong says yes, it's in the innermost building. As he reports this to his boss, the boss turns to Lu and asks if Chun Sha used to be her man. He says that he's leading a team to raid Qin Zhao's home and asks if she'll feel heartache over it. After hearing this, Lu looks shocked at first, then immediately reassures him. She says that right now her heart only has him in it and there's no space for anyone else. She tells him he's the best and the only one she could have ever wanted. She also adds that as for Chun Shao, he's nothing but a useless piece of trash. But deep down, she's thinking to herself that tonight is Chun Zhao's end. She wants him completely finished today. She even feels ready to cling to this man harder and push him to act faster just to make sure Qin Sha is dealt with. As they move forward together, the shopkeeper suddenly runs over and eagerly asks if Big Brother is here for Chun Sha. He explains that they're homeowners in this complex and says they're willing to help teach Chun Sha a lesson. Another man behind him quickly agrees and says they know the area well. He offers to help block Kia's escape route if he tries to run. The boss nods and says that if they help catch Chun Shao, he'll share some of the supplies from Chun Hyo's room with them. The shopkeeper immediately gets even more excited and thanks him enthusiastically. He urges the boss to follow him, saying they know a shortcut. He's extremely eager and wants Chun Sha to get what he deserves as soon as possible, helping in every way he can. Around them, other people also start trying to grab whatever they can. Anyone who tries to stop them gets beaten back. No one wants to share anymore. Everyone just wants everything for themselves. As the mafia boss and the shopkeeper move through the area, the shopkeeper suddenly points ahead and nervously says that this is his home and that they're on the same side. The boss coldly replies that it doesn't matter. He says that from now on the whole building belongs to Lu. The hag immediately explodes in anger and says they can't do this, insisting they never provoked them. She can't believe that she only wanted all of this to happen to Chen Shirao, not to herself. But these are mafia guys and they don't care at all. They have power and people backing them, so they simply take whatever they want. The shopkeeper finally panics and collapses into regret. He admits that he was wrong and that he shouldn't have been greedy for those scraps. Now everything is gone and even his way to survive has disappeared. He sees the hag getting beaten by the goons and the others are also lying helpless on the ground. He keeps shouting that he was truly blind and wonders how he could ever trust a bunch of beasts like them. At this point, there's nothing that can be done. The mafia guys gather together with their swords, their boss standing at the front and that bad girl right beside him. The bad girl has already gotten what she wanted and now she only wants revenge. As they all stare at the building from outside, something suddenly crashes down. From inside, Chun Sha throws a couch straight onto the ground below. While casually enjoying his meal, he looks down and asks if everyone is looking for him. He looks like he's having a great time. The boss sneers and says that death is already imminent. Yet Chun is still putting on a show. He tells Chun to hand over the supplies, and he'll at least leave his body intact. The bad girl stands beside him, watching closely to see what happens next. Chun remains calm. He slowly wipes his mouth with a cloth and says that didn't their parents teach them basic manners. He says it's extremely rude to disturb someone while they're eating and asks if these goons can't even manage something that simple. That completely sets the boss off. He curses and orders everyone to beat Chun as much as they want. The goons rush forward all at once, but Chun easily dodges the punches while still holding his plate. His balance is ridiculously good. One guy lunges at him, and Chun grabs his head and slams it straight into the ground. Another man charges in with a huge weapon, swinging it wildly. Chin dodges the swing and kicks him hard, leaving the guy wondering what just happened. Then another attacker comes from behind with an axe and tries to strike Qin Shirao. Chun thinks to himself if they're really forcing him to use spatial segmentation now. He steadies himself and prepares. Suddenly, a bottle flies forward toward the boss and the bad girl. They look at it in confusion and in the next moment, thick smoke fills the area. Turns out to be a smoke grenade. The boss starts coughing and shouting that it's tear gas. He yells that this kid has a helper and orders everyone to retreat immediately. The group panics and scrambles around. Even Chun Sha looks a bit confused by this sudden development. In the chaos, the axe guy misses his strike and drops his weapon onto the ground. Then another voice speaks up, saying that the trouble Chen stirred up isn't small at all. He adds that Chen's skills are actually pretty impressive. Chun looks toward him and says he only wants to know one thing. Asking why he's here, the man replies that it's about guns. He asks if Chun still wants them and says he has good goods available. He makes it clear that he just wants to keep the deal going and doesn't want trouble with weapons or business. In his eyes, this place is exactly where his weapons would be needed the most. What will happen next? Subscribe right now and turn on all the notifications to not miss any of my next ones.